Anyway, that's my to the backboard. Still counts for 3 points. Bank shot open.
Cheers. Cheers to the
Cheers
bank.
to that. Cheers to the bank. So a lot of big games tonight. We're gonna start this first one though. LSU, Kentucky. It's January, and Kentucky sat at 7-4 heading into this game, and somehow it was a must-win situation for the Wildcats. Rob, when in recent memory have you felt this type of sense of urgency and somewhat panic from the Kentucky faithful?
I mean, after last year's NCAA tournament, I guess is probably the most recent time. I think it's been something that's been building with them, right? You had the 2020-21 season, which was not, I mean, that was not good, right? We all know what happened there. I think you can give everybody a pass for what happened during the COVID season. I think it's unfair to criticize anybody too much for that. Even last year, losing to St. Peter's, I think you can kind of squint and you can say, look, you know what? Severe Wheeler was banged up. We don't know how healthy Ty Washington was. Kellen Grady had plantar fasciitis for like the last month of the season and was trying to play through it and wasn't doing it all that well. So you can kind of talk yourself into a reason why that happened. But you combine all of that with, the loss, the last second loss to Auburn in the 2019 Elite Eight, the shot that Luke May hit to send Kentucky home the 2017 Elite Eight, the no call against Nigel Hayes on in the 2015 Final Four when they could have ended up going 40. It feels like that fan base has taken a lot of punches over the course of the last 6 to 8 years, and I think that they're kind of getting frustrated with the way that the program is going. And I'll tell you what, for 20 minutes tonight, I texted you guys this in our group chat. For 20 minutes tonight, I was like, they fixed this thing. Coach Cal's got it solved. He's got this thing rolling. They shot 57% from the floor in the first half. They were 4 for 8 from three in the first half. They had 11 assists. They had just 2 turnovers. Severe Wheeler was halfway to a triple double. Cason Wallace was playing like a lottery pick. Oscar Sheway's out here picking up every missed shot. They look great for about 35 minutes. And then, the last 5 minutes, they're up by 10 with, I think it was 6 minutes to go, Matt. And they just, the offense just wasn't there. They weren't doing it. And it was kind of the same thing over and over again. We keep seeing the same thing. I feel like we have the same conversation every time we're on here about Kentucky.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear you even say too, like, you get the COVID year and I think everyone deserved a pass in the COVID year, right? And you go back before that and you're like, oh, then the Elite Eight, and then the Elite Eight, and then they had the Final Four, and that Nigel Hayes, and it's like, wait a minute here. Like, what's the standard at Kentucky? Right? It's not Elite Eights, it's not even Final Fours, it's national championships. And first and foremost, I'm trying to figure out, is Cal going to go suit? Is going to go no suit? Are we going sweatsuit?
He just needs to go
What are we
suit.
sticking to?
He's got to do the suit.
I don't know. Tonight, the defensive stance on the sidelines, he was like willing his team to victory in that defensive stance. I think he needs to stick to whatever those nice khaki pants he had on tonight, wear the quarter zip and rock that out, because you could see just like he was trying to will his team, even defensively. And I know there was a lot of criticism on that last play in the first half where they ran and jumped at half court, but you could see Cal trying to send the guy up there. Like, Cal was the one that was like pointing to him, like, go get him, like almost trying to create something there that wasn't there. But just trying to will his team and get them to fight and defend and compete at a high level. I want to give Matt McMahon credit. Okay. I like, nobody picked LSU to do anything this year. If they didn't pick them last, it was South Carolina. Like who it was, like one of the two of them were picked dead last in the league. And he's got his
I liked him this year. I liked him this year. I was in on
Okay.
him.
Okay.
I was in on him.
But just
It's
the
one of the ones I got right,
execution.
Matt. I got like 2 right this year: LSU and Kansas State. I'm taking my victories where I can get them.
And LSU's only loss besides to Kentucky is to Kansas State. So there you
There
go.
you
Double
go.
points for you, Doster.
There you go. I like some of the executions coming out of timeouts by McMahon. There was like 10 minutes to go. I think it was like 10, 12 to go, and they move the floor and they run the elevator. They get a wide open shot. It just doesn't go in. I think if that game is in Baton Rouge, I think the outcome could be different. I like everyone's giving Cal, so much, what's going on? What's wrong with the offense? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with Oscar Chigwe? Like, as crazy as that sounds, and the numbers that he's putting up are absolutely ridiculous. But if you watch him play on offense, I think he could be so much better. Like, the guy never screens. He never screens. He kind of floats around, and then all of a sudden it gets up on the glass, and he goes up and grabs it. Or, you know, I thought LSU's call to go to the zone in the first half was tremendous, but Shikwe keeps floating out of the baseline. It's like, okay, well, LSU's wings in the zone are pressing up. That means there's only the center that's sitting at the halo. Like, duck in or screen to get someone open and then duck in. Like, the whole zone offense where you just got to get the ball to the middle of the zone, and they did that some tonight. And I thought Jacob Topping was terrific in the middle of the zone. Yep. I thought he made a lot of good plays. But, like, why can't we be critical of Oscar Tshiebwe? Because I
think that we can. And I also think that we can be critical of how Cal uses him, right? You have a guy, I don't think there's anybody that's better than him at like sealing or creating space or just using the fact that he's 6'9", 260 pounds, whatever it is, of solid, like, you can't move him. How come we're not seeing offenses and sets that are designed to just kind of get him where all he has to do is turn, seal, double post entry, turn a late in? You know, Bill Self has made a living. He's won 2 national titles doing nothing but finding ways to scheme big guys, plays where all they have to do is catch it and shoot it, right? How come we're not seeing more of that? One of the things that frustrated me, and this was pointed out by Terrence Oglesby to me today, was that he goes, watch Kentucky and see how often Tshiebwe's in the dunker spot. Like, he's never there.
He's always floating out. Yeah, he's coming out. He's coming out. He's like out past the SEC logo. It's like, he's like, stop doing that. Like, get down on the baseline. And I do agree with you. And especially when you're playing against zone, like, everyone thinks like zone offense has to be the old like X, right? Like, you've got the bigs that are Xing off each other. One guy's at the high post, one guy's on the baseline, right? Like, then they just X. Well, like, you can run ball screen continuity and have a 5-man on the baseline that is screening for a shooter coming along the baseline. And then all of a sudden, if the wing defender takes the shooter going to the corner, now what? Duck in on the center and throw him the ball in the paint. It's one of the easiest ways to score against a zone, and they don't do that.
Yeah, the one thing I will give him credit for is that he's really shortened his bench. And I know some of it's been kind of forced by injuries, but it wasn't like CJ Frederick and Lance Ware were playing all that many minutes before they got banged up, right? Damian Collins played 9 minutes tonight. Antonio Reeves played 14 minutes tonight. It feels like those numbers are a lot higher than that. It feels like that's a lot higher than it really was, because every time I looked at the floor, it looked like it was that main 5, right? Toppin, Livingston, Tshiebwe, Cason Wallace, Severe Wheeler. I feel like that's kind of what you have to roll with if you're Cal. You make that be the lineup that you use, and then kind of work these other guys in the moments where you need them. Whether you need someone to come in and kind of spell Tshiebwe the 5, you were getting killed on the glass, get Damian Collins in there. If you need some shooting, get Reeves or Frederick in there, right? But work with that group and figure it out with that group, because 1, I think that's your best defensive group, and 2, I think that is the especially with Toppin playing the way that he has, I think that's the group that you probably have the most offensive firepower with, where you don't lose, you know, like if you have Reeves and Frederick out there, you're not getting stops, right?
Yeah, you guys make a good point about Oscar Tshiebwe, like 19 points, 16 rebounds. You read that stat line, you're like, holy hell, like that's incredible.
I think he could be better.
Yeah, I'm with you. Here's the thing. He could potentially be an NFL tight end. That's the body he has, right? Just incredible size and physicality, yet he's a non-factor on the first shot in a possession offensively. He's great on the offensive rebound putback. No one can guard him then because no one can box him out. But at what point, to your point, Matt, is it on coach, and at what point is it on Oscar?
Like, when you run an offensive action and you're saying, hey, we're running a middle ball screen, and that's a little bit difficult because of 5-man, a lot of guys go under, and if he starts twisting screens, and he's going to pick up an illegal screen. But like, if they're running a screening action, like a lot of times when you run screening actions, and they don't do it like a ton, but if like you're running a screening action, it's for 2 things: 1, to get a guy a 3-point shot, or 2, to get a post up. Like, that's it. Like, nobody runs screening actions to get a mid-range jump shot anymore. So if you're running a screening action, he's got to screen and then duck in and post up to get himself open. Even if they're running spread pick and rolls, like screen and roll to the back, he has to screen to get himself open. He doesn't screen enough. I mean,
what really bothers me with this group, Matt, is I think if you go look at Purdue, right? I think that Purdue is going to be like, they're kind of a similar build in terms of how they want to play versus Kentucky, right? They both have a big guy that really can't do much defensively and can't do much outside of like 8 feet from the rim, right? They have 4 four guards, four perimeter players around him. Believe it or not, this might shock people listening to this. Kentucky is a much, much better three-point shooting team than Purdue is right now. Purdue is outside the top 300 in three-point shooting percentage so far this season. Kentucky's shooting like 37% from three. They're on like different spectrums. But if you look at what they run, Purdue is one of the most efficient offensive teams in college basketball. Now, a lot of that has to do is because they have the big fella Shaq Edey, not Zach Edey. It is Shaq Edey from now on at the 5.
Did you trademark that?
I need to.
You need
that
to.
needs to be a
Make a shirt.
That needs a shirt. That needs a shirt.
We do. But the other part of it is the actions that they run. Right, when you get a lot of movement offensively, when you're running the ball around, when you're swinging the ball around, when you have guys moving, when you guys have cutting, when you're playing a two-man game and trying to get the ball into the post with somebody, if you just have simply a stagger screen on the other side of the floor, then all of a sudden that forces the defense to have to play one-on-one in the post.
Yes.
Simple stuff like that. And that is not what Kentucky's doing. And that's what frustrates me. Like that, to me, that is really, really basic stuff. And
to your point, you're forcing the defense to have to think every single every single second of that possession. And they're not doing that whatsoever.
Yeah. And this is why. So the low man, for people that aren't into the X's and O's, right? The low man is the guy that is in charge of figuring out, like, am I going to help on the guy rolling to the rim? Am I going to be there to try to catch a lob, someone throwing it over the top if someone's fronting him, right? And the low man is always the lowest person on the weak side of the floor, the person that's guarding the lowest player. If you have movement on that side, defenses get confused. They don't know who the low man actually is, right? Or the guy that thinks he's a low man, if somebody moves, all of a sudden you got a wide open three-point shooter because he got lost. Like, movement on the weak side of the floor is just so important to finding ways to make everything work.
Yeah, you can't just come down and dump the ball into the post. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you have to,
unless you're at the YMCA,
get the defense to loosen a little bit. Like, you can't just, like, you got to run and act. Like, I totally get. And, like, think about it. And I'm being critical of Oscar Tshiebwe, and the guy plays his tail off every single night. He, goes out and gets 17 rebounds.
It's fair to criticize the guy that was a reigning national player of the year,
and the other
he's
thing
not the
too
national player of the year, right?
Exactly. Go back to when Luka Garza, ran the floor every single possession. Luka Garza screened to get himself open. Like, if Oscar did that, I mean, I think he could get at least 8 or 9 more points a night.